Yo, what's going on, guys? We're back with another one today. I'm gonna be hitting chest and arms today, but today's an arm focus one. Last time it was a chest focus one. So basically, I'm doing the exact same movements and sets as last time, but I'm doing like arm movements first. So I'm gonna start with the JM press, then preacher curl, then the incline press. When before it was the incline press, the JM press, and then the preacher curl. But, overall, the goal of today is to just go hard as shit like last time, but focus on arms more. By the time you guys are seeing this, it is a day later than the actual lift was. Ran out of time yesterday to get the video out, but I'm going to be trying to get it out now. So, overall, last 3 days have been great lifts, honestly. Chest and arms, back and shoulders, and chest and arms again. Those are my three favorite lifts of the week. Legs is great, but that shit can be dreadful sometimes. But, today is, at the time you guys are seeing this, it is day 2 of the cut. But at the time of this workout, it was day 1. So I'm going to be cutting probably, most likely, at least 4 weeks till the end of January. But probably like 6 weeks, because I got 6 weeks till February break. I want to lose like 7.5 pounds of fat. I'll be like 10% body fat then. That's the goal. If I'm feeling good and I want to be a little leaner, I'll push it through February break and then maybe 2 weeks into March. It depends how I'm feeling and just how we're looking by then. But right now here I'm just warming up to a top set. But I really was making sure that I had my arms loose, my chest loose, everything had blood to the muscle, and I was warm. This top set of JM press, it felt great, man. It really did. And I progressed by a lot on it. You guys will see in just a second here. But yeah, 115 last time we got 5 reps, and honestly I got 9 reps. And the form was better throughout, like, pretty much the whole entire set. I didn't really, get my butt out of the bench too much, aside from at the end of the set where it came off a little bit. But honestly, like, if my butt comes off a little bit on these, I'm not too worried. It just helps me push a little bit, the set a little bit harder, a little bit farther. So, yeah, 9 reps, though. That we progressed by 4 reps, partially because we did it, before incline press, so we weren't as fatigued, but we definitely progressed, so I'm very happy with that. Preacher curls, I went 10 pounds heavier to 65. Last session we did 55 for 12. I think I got like 5 reps here, but they were really good 5 reps. I really had a ton of tension on my biceps, and they felt pretty good afterwards. They weren't like super pumped like when I do high reps, but they felt like, they were worked pretty well. So overall, just a great set. I want to get in a little bit of like the mindset I've been having lately. Because there's been past cuts I had. Like I cut for like 2.5 weeks back in the end of October, beginning of November, and I had intended to go farther, but I ended up just fucking up. I binged. I just went off and I just said, fuck it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm just going to bulk. And I bulked for 8 weeks, and it was a good bulk. But, it kind of nagged me the whole 8 weeks, because I realized after I had fucked up on the cut that I actually made a ton of progress. I got, noticeably leaner, at least in my eyes. I definitely did. And, but, I've come to realize that the past, it can only be accepted. It cannot be changed. So, the important thing is that right now, I just push through and I decide to do better this time around, because I can't change the past. I can only accept it. And that oftentimes, when shit gets hard, shit gets stressful, you oftentimes just suffer more in your mind than you do in reality, because the time's going to pass either way, So whether I spend the next 6 weeks bulking and, kind of not liking the way I look, or cutting and starting to like the way I look a little bit better, then, that's up to me. because time is going to pass at the same speed, at the same rate. Doesn't matter. So, just got to spend it wisely and actually lock in this time on the cut. I've done about 3 aggressive cuts at this point. First one I made tons of progress. Second one I made tons of progress. Third one I made tons of progress. But yeah, just that mindset of, denying temporary pleasures for a greater permanent pleasure down the road. It's a lot easier to go get a crumble cookie and eat it and get that pleasure. It's not easy to get the pleasure of being lean. Yo guys, it's pretty sick. I got mini fridge down here now. It comes in clutch mid-workout. I got the honey, and I got the apple juice for intra-workout carbs, and I got some Diet Coke, so I'm just chilling down here on my game, but I'm about to have one of these now mid-workout. Just wanted to show you guys that mini fridge I got. I thought that was pretty sick, comes in clutch, for the intra carbs. And I highly recommend that if you haven't tried taking intra, sipping on, some carbs mid-workout slowly, after you get your top sets done. It's going to make your rest of your workout feel so much better, bro. First time I had intra, it was great, but, back on the topic of the mentality is that, like I was saying earlier, eating a crumble cookie and getting that pleasure, that's easy. Getting lean and getting that pleasure takes longer, it's a lot harder, which directly correlates with it being a greater pleasure. So, just lock in, deny those temptations and know that you're suffering more in your mind than you are in reality, because in reality, you're chilling, it's not that bad. But yeah, and just doing hard things in general, cutting, working out, is going to prepare you for, other hard things you might face in life, and there's another quote, from Arnold that I really like, and it's that you can have results or you can have excuses. You cannot have both. If you're not getting the results you want, it's almost always because you're not doing what it takes, And that goes to, 5% mentality, Rich Piana. I'm connecting a whole lot of things here. Is that, there's a small percentage of people, 5%, that are willing to do whatever it takes to reach their goals, And Rich, he didn't have time for those people that weren't willing to do whatever it takes, They weren't willing to lift. They weren't willing to fucking eat. They weren't willing to just, just give it 110%, And something I always say is that, you got to keep it 100% real with yourself 100% of the time. Because, if you're just saying, rationalizing shit, saying, oh, I could eat this cookie because I've been working harder, I could skip this lift because I don't feel like it, just, you're not keeping it 100% real with yourself. You're not gonna, fucking get those results. So, you want to be deciphering whether you just don't feel like it or you generally need a rest day most of the time. For most people, I'd say it's just because they don't feel like it, because, there's plenty of people that train 7 days a week, and as long as you're sleeping well enough and taking a rest day every week, maybe even not, as long as you're managing fatigue and recovery, then it's almost always because you don't feel like it, if you're trying to skip your workout. For me, I never want to skip a workout, bro. Like, rest days, I just am so bored on them, because the only thing for me to do is walk on the treadmill to get steps in. But yeah, just fucking stay disciplined and continue to lift, because it's not that bad to go in and do it and just get it the fuck over with, Not every lift is really gonna be like the best one you've ever had. Sometimes you're just gonna have a shitty lift. A shitty lift better than no lift. So, that's kind of what I got to say on that. But I'm also gonna talk about what I'm gonna be doing for this upcoming cut. I'm gonna be eating 1,950 calories on training days, 1,550 on rest days, because my maintenance is about 400 lower on rest days so it's not necessary to eat same amount of calories, and just puts me in, this exact same deficit daily, rather than a smaller one on rest days. But I'm be, hitting my protein, 130, 140 grams, and lifting 6 times a week, like always, training hard, and not dropping the intensity, keeping the intensity. And I'll be doing a 15-minute HIIT cardio 6 days a week on training days. It's basically just 30 seconds all out and 30 seconds rest, and repeating that 15 times for a total 15 minutes. Then I usually cool down for like 2.5 to 5 minutes. And then what else am I going to be doing? Taking supplements and all that jazz, but prioritizing sleep. That's very important, because I'd rather be hungry than, just hungry than hungry and tired, because, that sucks when you just got no energy because you didn't get sleep. So I'm going to be trying to get 8 to 10 hours a night, and really just focusing on it a lot more than I was. I'm going to be having no phone half to an hour before bed, wearing blue light blocking glasses, and just winding down at night. Making sure that cortisol isn't too high before you go to bed is pretty important, because sleep is where you're going to recover, and honestly where a lot of the fat loss happens. Because, tend to go to bed a little hungry. Body's got to use those fat stores. Doesn't have any glycogen or food to, shuffle into the muscle. But overall, you want to be spreading your meals out pretty evenly on the cut. Some days, it's going to be a little lopsided with how you spread them out, but, that's alright if that happens sometimes. Just want most of the time it to be even spread. And saving a little more calories later in the day is fine, but don't get too obsessive with, hoarding all them for the end of the day. You want to be having calories to eat early in the day, too, because you need to give your body, energy at all points of the day that you're awake, really. You don't want to just be eating a ton at one time. I think that's pretty important. Because I tend to just get so hungry when I save so many calories at the end of the day. And then after I'm done eating, it's just like I'm still hungry, and then I end up binging. That's how I failed to cut a lot of times, honestly. But be learning from my mistakes during past cuts, and doing better, because I've gotten better with how I execute it every single cut. So I think that's just a important thing. Just keep improving every bulk, every cut at how you do things, because you can always do better. You can always do more. Like Rich said, there's always more to do. Train 2 hours a day, you can train 3. If you do an hour cardio a day, you can do an hour and a half. You eat X amount of calories a day on the cut, you could eat less. On the bulk, you could eat more. But honestly, bulking isn't really necessary. You just eat at maintenance and gain as much as possible. I'm also going to be progressing on pretty much all of my lifts during the cut as well. Or at least maintaining my strength at the very least. But, no reason to not be progressing as long as I'm, being smart with how I structure my meals and my nutrition daily. And, getting good sleep, recovering. But, I've done worse, more aggressive cuts and still gained strength. So this one should be light and being like a 625 calorie deficit. That'll be like 1.25 pounds of fat loss a week. And, hopefully by 4 to 6 weeks, I'll be looking a lot leaner. Main goal is to get, lower abs showing, as well as quad separation and quad veins. Overall, just like a leaner, better physique. At the end of the day, we're always trying to improve physique, whether it be getting leaner, adding more size, getting more vascular, you know. But at the end of the day, I really do this shit for the process of it. You know, the results are, you know, I am chasing those results to get bigger, leaner, but I just enjoy the process of lifting and eating, and sometimes, you know, I don't feel like it, but I do it anyways and I feel better afterwards. So that's an important insight. But yeah, getting to the end of the lift here, just doing my forearms, and my cardio, my traps, which I already did here, but trying to progress this movement too. I'm at like 42.5 pounds. I'm gonna be going up to 45 next session though. Challenging myself a bit more. I think that's important. So, you know, like I said, this is for that top part of the forearm, that brachioradialis, and then next movement I do, the cable forearm curls are gonna be for the bottom of your forearm, right here. Yeah. Just try to go heavy on this movement too, and really any movement, and just giving my muscles a reason to grow, because that's the only way you're gonna grow. You gotta force it. You can't just go and dilly-dally in a gym. You gotta force that growth. But yeah, you know, you guys get the gist. Train hard, eat clean, recover. You know, get your 8 to 10 hours of sleep, and you know, get your water in, take your creatine, vitamin D, whatever. Just give it 110%, bro. No reason to go in and not give it 110%. Like, you know, if you really want those results, you know, you can't have excuses. You can't have reasons that you don't have those results. You know, unless it's medical, you get an injury, whatever. But you know, if you're a healthy individual, you should be able to push yourself and do whatever it takes to get to where you want to be. No reason not to. Just hold yourself accountable day to day. You know, if you gotta repeat those quotes, like, you know, I repeat those quotes all the time to myself. You know, it holds me accountable, and, you know, gives me a purpose and a reason to keep going and doing what I'm doing, even if it sucks. But that's about all I got for us. So I'll see you guys in the next one. But yeah, peace.